You write down the first line, only the opening, never the whole thing. Hello, this is me. I'm calling about the appointment on Thursday. You read it once, you say it under your breath. You check the clock, decide it is a bad time to ring, and put the phone back down. 20 minutes later, you make the call. It lasts 90 seconds. Nothing goes wrong. Tomorrow, you will rehearse the next one exactly the same way. If you recognize this, you're running a specific mechanism with a name and a research literature behind it. And that mechanism has one property that turns everything upside down. The rehearsal works. It works every single time. That is precisely why it never stops. There's also something about phone calls that almost everybody explains backwards, including people who write about communication for a living. It concerns what you actually lose when you cannot see the other person's face, and the answer is stranger than the obvious one. I will come back to it. Start with the call itself, because the phone is doing something specific to your brain. In 2009, Tanya Stivers led a team that recorded ordinary conversations in 10 languages, drawn from major world languages and small indigenous communities alike. They measured one thing with precision: the gap between one person finishing a question and the next person starting to answer. Across all 10 languages, the most common gap sat between 0 and 200 milliseconds. 200 milliseconds is a fifth of a second, roughly the length of a single syllable. Consider what that requires of you. Understanding a full sentence takes longer than a fifth of a second. Choosing a reply takes longer than that. Finding the words takes longer still. So to answer that fast, you have to begin building your response while the other person is still speaking. Everyone does this. You have done it in every conversation of your life, without ever deciding to. The pattern held everywhere the researchers looked. The cultures varied, the timing barely moved. Now the part people get backwards. The obvious explanation for phone dread is that you cannot see the other person, so the timing collapses. You lose the cues that signal someone is finishing, and you end up talking over them or leaving awkward holes. The research does not support that. Reviewing this work, Stephen Levinson and Francisco Torreira noted that the turn-taking system runs with equal efficiency without visual contact. Your timing machinery does not need a face. It runs on grammar, on rhythm, on the shape of a sentence heading toward its end. Radio hosts manage it. Blind people manage it. You manage it. So the difficulty on a phone call has nothing to do with broken timing. Yours is fine. What you lose is the explanation for silence. In a room, a pause arrives already labeled. The other person glances at their calendar, or reaches for a pen, or nods while they think. The silence comes with a reason attached, and you read it without effort. On a phone, silence arrives bare. 2 seconds of nothing might mean they are writing it down. It might mean they are irritated. It might mean the line dropped, or that you said something odd, or that they are simply deciding. You have to supply the meaning yourself. And under pressure, people do not supply neutral meanings. That is the job the script is doing. A prepared opening produces fewer silences of your own and leaves you less room to interpret theirs. Now the mechanism underneath all of it. In 1995, David Clark and Adrian Wells published a cognitive model of social anxiety that reshaped how the whole condition gets treated. Therapies built on it are among the most effective available. Their model describes 3 phases around any feared social event. Before it, anticipatory processing. You run the event in advance, repeatedly, in detail, rehearsing mostly the parts that could go wrong. After it, post-event processing. You replay the whole thing, scanning for the moment you embarrassed yourself. And during it, 2 things happen at once: self-focused attention and safety behaviors. Safety behaviors are the heart of this. A safety behavior is anything you do to prevent a social disaster you fear. Writing your opening line, rehearsing the middle. Keeping bullet points in front of you. Calling at a time you know produces voicemail, having an exit line ready before you dial. Standing up so your voice comes out steadier. Every one of those looks sensible. Every one of them counts. Here's the property that makes them so difficult to escape. The call goes fine. You rehearsed, and nothing bad happened. So what do you conclude? You conclude the rehearsal saved you. Clark and Wells identified exactly this. When the feared catastrophe fails to arrive, the person credits the safety behavior with preventing it. The belief that phone calls are dangerous never gets tested, because the script collects the reward every time. Sit with the shape of that trap. A successful call stops being evidence that calls are survivable. It becomes evidence that your script works. So each good call leaves the next one feeling exactly as dangerous as before, and the script grows more necessary rather than less. That is how someone accumulates 20 years of perfectly successful phone calls and still writes down their opening line. The researchers tested this directly. Wells, Clark, and their colleagues took a small group of socially anxious patients and ran 2 sessions with each of them. One session was ordinary exposure, facing the feared situation. The other was exposure with the safety behaviors deliberately dropped. Dropping the safety behaviors worked better. It produced a larger reduction in anxiety during the situation, and a larger drop in how strongly people believed the catastrophe was coming. Facing the fear helped. Facing it without the script helped more. There is a second cost, and this one arrives immediately. Clark and Wells describe how attention swings inward inside a feared situation. You begin monitoring yourself. How do I sound? Was that too fast? Did my voice shake on that word? Attention is limited, and social information lives outside you. It sits in their tone, their pauses, the thing they just said. Every unit of attention you spend watching yourself is a unit you're not spending on them. So the script written to make the call go well can quietly make you worse at the only thing the call requires, which is hearing the other person and answering what they actually asked. You have probably felt this happen. They say something slightly off script, and for a beat there is nothing there at all, because you were not listening for their words. You were waiting for your turn to deliver your line. Research on this has found that socially anxious people using more safety behaviors are rated by observers as performing less well, not better. The precaution shows, so what do you do with all this? The obvious answer is to stop rehearsing, and that answer is too blunt to be useful. Taken cold, it makes things worse. 2 things are worth knowing instead. The first concerns degree. Preparing for a call is often plain competence. Checking your account number before ringing the bank is admin, and nobody needs to psychoanalyze it. What this research describes is preparation driven by fear rather than usefulness, the kind you cannot put down. A cleaner test than counting your notes is this. Imagine making the call without preparing at all. If that thought produces a small jolt of dread, the preparing has been doing a different job than the one it appears to do. The second concerns how a belief actually updates. Since the script takes all the credit, the only way your mind learns the call was survivable is to get through one without it. Start somewhere the stakes are close to 0, where a slightly clumsy call costs you nothing whatsoever. Ring to ask the opening hours of a shop you will never visit. This is why clinicians working from this model have people drop their safety behaviors on purpose, in small doses, rather than simply pushing them into more feared situations. Exposure by itself can leave the belief completely intact because the person brings the script along and hands it the credit again. Letting go of the script is what lets the evidence through. And if this runs deeper than mild friction before a phone call, if it shapes which jobs you apply for or which appointments quietly never get booked, that is worth taking to a professional. The model exists because effective treatments were built on it, not because anyone is expected to solve it alone. Here's the reframe worth carrying out of this. Every call you scripted and got through was real evidence about you. You handled a stranger's questions in real time, at 1/5 of a second per turn, and you did it well enough that the call ended fine. That competence was yours the whole time. Your mind filed it under the script. The rehearsal never taught you that you cannot do this. It only made sure you never found out that you can. That is the cue most people miss. If you have ever written down your opening line before a call, leave a comment and tell me what the call was for. Subscribe to Psychology Q, and I will keep showing you the signals hiding in plain sight.